So I really wanted to start with some seemingly unrelated fact or anecdote and then find a clever way to tie it back into the conclusion of my presentation. But the more I thought about it, I realized that the topics that I want to discuss today are so well aligned with the kind of broader mission of this ecosystem that I feel like I kind of just need to start with some of the same facts that we've all heard before. So, around 30% of the global population is unbanked. In panels during the event, I've learned that unbanked is probably the wrong word, and it might be better to say underserved. Remittance costs are way too high, and the world's poorest pay the most for financial services. So these are all facts that we've heard before, and they've basically become mantras of the blockchain industry more broadly, Stellar more specifically, and as it would happen, shift markets as well. But maybe you don't know shift markets. That's okay. I can forgive it, at least until we've gotten through this next slide. So Shift has actually been around since 2009, when the business was bootstrapped by our founders, who are still leading the business today. At that point, they were an FX company doing consulting, organizing events, and eventually making a name for themselves by offering a turnkey white label FX brokerage product, which is a little bit of a mouthful. But basically, it gives people technology, liquidity, and knowledge to start their own FX brokerage. But then sometime around 2016, they realized that Bitcoin, USD, was their second highest traded asset, and they realized that crypto wasn't going away. So they decided to pivot and turn a lot of their energy into building a turnkey white label crypto product to help people get into the crypto space. Now, for a long time, we would talk about our product as a white label crypto exchange, where we could build out an experience where people could sign up, go through KYC, deposit funds, trade, and then eventually withdraw those funds. And they'd also have access to a back office where they could see the activity that was happening on the exchange and then control different parts of it. And everything is API enabled. So, if there were any custom integrations that were necessary, any specific service that they needed for their market in particular, then we could either build the custom integrations for them, or we could just, allow their developers to work on it directly. More recently, we've realized that this white label exchange that we've built can be used in many more applications beyond just straight up doing an exchange. So many of the things that you need for an exchange are necessary for anybody that's looking to enter the crypto space. So how does this work with Stellar? Well, one thing you might notice just looking at this slide right off the bat is that we've got deposit and withdraw, buy and sell, some of the same things. It's a little bit redundant to what I just said in the last slide. But I think it is worth reiterating those points because all of those things that our exchange is made for, you can do with Stellar-based assets. And then on top of that, you're able to tap into the FX liquidity that Shift has built over so many years, still being in that space. And then beyond that, there's other things like we have a CryptoPay API that allows you to do payments, which is obviously a very important thing for Stellar. And we have products that allow you to earn yield. So again, it just really can pull together this ecosystem for anybody that's looking to enter the space or utilize Stellar. But all of these, kind of different random features that I'm speaking through right now don't necessarily give you a perfect picture of the application I might be talking about. So I'd like to take a little bit of time and talk through a specific implementation that you might be able to use with Shift technology connected to the Stellar network. So you might imagine a construction company in Toronto, and maybe they asked their web design firm in Rio de Janeiro for a new feature for their site. Now, when it came time to talk a little bit about the price for that feature, Toronto Construction may have felt like it should be included in their monthly fee. And then Rio de Janeiro may have argued that, the monthly fee is meant to cover hosting costs and doesn't necessarily account for extra features, and this new thing they want is out of scope. I don't know, this whole scenario seems reasonable to me, but maybe I've been working at a SaaS company for a little bit too long. Anyway, they decided that the price that they would agree upon is 1,000 Brazilian real. And what they could do is they could go through traditional channels and initiate a payment in Canadian dollars that eventually gets converted into Brazilian real, all along the way paying a bunch of financial intermediaries, incurring a lot of costs, and having slow transaction speeds. Separately, they could utilize a solution that utilizes Shift's technology connected to the Stellar network, and reduce the fees, get much better execution rates, and have much faster transaction times. Basically, the way that it would work is that on either end of the payment, on either end of the transaction, you still have domestic fiat payments, right? So it would start with somebody like the Toronto Construction sending a Canadian dollar payment to Stablecorp, and then automatically you can imagine Stablecorp issuing VCAD and sending that to the Shift-based application, and then once received, the user's account would be credited and automatically converted into BRZ with the rate that Shift is able to provide from the FX liquidity that we have. And then automatically you could process a withdrawal that hits Transfero, and then Transfero could be given instructions to automatically send a Brazilian real payment in fiat directly to the web design provider. So this flow that I've just kind of brought you guys through is the fundamental value proposition for an application like this. And it's a great way to get people using the app, but then once they are using it, now they might realize that they just want to hold stablecoins on the application rather than waiting to start with the fiat payment, right? Skip that first step, and in the process, by leaving their stablecoin on the app, they can also earn yield on the stablecoin. So I think there's a lot of value in having an application like this. And right now the total volume of the total daily volume of crypto transactions is about 68 billion, compared to about 6 trillion in the FX market. So there really is a massive opportunity for growth here. But one thing that I am willing to recognize is that whole orchestration layer that's kind of sitting in the middle that utilizes Shift's tech is a centralized application. And that's not necessarily the end goal for this entire ecosystem. It's a step in the right direction because we're utilizing the Stellar network and we're avoiding a lot of those intermediaries. But it still utilizes a central entity. But for that reason, I think Shift wants to continue to move toward decentralization. And that's why I'm really excited to announce that Cables is coming to Stellar. So Shift is going to be building Cables on Stellar. Maybe you don't know what Cables is, and I just announced it, so again, I can forgive that, at least until I've gotten through the next slide. So basically what Cables is a semi-decentralized exchange. So it utilizes centralized liquidity, but it allows users to self-custody their assets. So basically the way that it works is that an end user would be able to connect their Stellar wallet to Cables, where Cables could verify the amount of funds that they have in their wallet, and the user would be able to initiate a trade. Once that trade is confirmed, the funds would automatically be deducted out of the user's wallet and swapped for the desired asset that they're looking to move into, and automatically withdrawn into the user's wallet. So you've got settlement tracking in real time, and again, Shift's FX liquidity. So one of the biggest problems we've seen with any DEX is price discovery. There just isn't enough liquidity for people to be able to execute against really high quality prices that are competitive with the traditional market. And we think that by utilizing this model, we're going to be able to go directly against them and provide a solution that, again, is not full decentralization, but it moves us in the right direction. So I want to close by just showing a couple of mock-ups of what Cables is going to look like both on desktop and on mobile, and then I'm happy to take any questions. So that's the desktop view. And that's the mobile view.
Label stuff.
Sure.
So Helgar from Rehive, and since we also do white label things, I'm curious, do you then give the customer in the model access to the front end code and they can kind of change things, or is it all sort of opinionated and you?
So it's a good point. So with Cables, I think Cables is a little bit off topic from the white label point. I just felt like it's such an exciting thing that we're building on Stellar that I had to announce it. But I think I can talk a little bit about the white label component of Cables to say that initially Shift is going to be providing the liquidity for Cables. But it's not anything that's going to be closed. So anybody could come in, and any other liquidity provider that feels incentivized and wants to be part of Cables can come in and do that. And because this is all happening on chain or via API, somebody could build a separate front end and directly go against Cables. But I guess that would be a little bit outside of our white label services, to be honest with you.
Hello, my name is Pan, and I'm a spot trader the last 5 years. It's really exciting about the cables. I would like to ask something very important for a trader. How does the KYC will fit into the whole flow of cables?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Initially, what we're doing with cables, we're not necessarily implementing KYC directly, but we are doing geo-blocking. So somebody in the States, unfortunately, wouldn't be able to access cables. We're also doing KYT. I think there's an elliptic integration. And then, another target market for cables is institutions. That's kind of the end goal, looking to have enough liquidity and the rate's so good that they want to go ahead and execute against this liquidity directly. And with them, we're definitely looking at doing KYC integrations to allow that type of activity. Yeah. Where are we licensed? So Shift is generally the technology. So for any of our white label clients, Shift is generally the technology provider. So we don't necessarily need a license, and our clients will need a license because they're operating the software that we set up. That said, this has kind of been a recurring conversation you can imagine for anybody looking to set up an exchange. So we've built out a pretty robust compliance team that actually offers a service to help people get licensing in the US, in Lithuania, in a number of countries around the world. Thanks, everybody.